Buenos días, muchas gracias a todos los asistentes a esta jornada Construyendo Entornos Educativos Saludables y Buenas Prácticas desde Atención Primaria. Muchísimas gracias. Disculpad que no pueda estar con vosotros en persona. Y bueno, quería presentaros a Guf Bose. Guf es una persona encantadora, a la que tuve la ocasión de conocerle en distintas reuniones en Bruselas en el entorno de un proyecto que es muy conocido por vosotras, como es el proyecto Schools for Health. Y bueno, deciros que él empezó sus estudios en nutrición humana. Su primer trabajo en Ámsterdam fue como profesor de maestros y ahí fue cuando empezó a unir la educación y la salud, siendo un visionario en aquel momento, porque su sueño, que es educar en salud e incluir la salud en todos los entornos educativos, pues se fue haciendo realidad y se hizo realidad siendo en 2007 director gerente de la Red Europea de Escuelas Promotoras de Salud y en 2018 que constituyó con Didier Durand la cátedra de la UNESCO Educación y Salud. Por lo tanto, esa visión que él tuvo hace ya muchos años de la importancia de incorporar la educación para la salud en todos los entornos escolares es una realidad. Y quería darle las gracias a Guf porque contó con la Consejería de Salud y Consumo para formar parte de esa cátedra de la UNESCO. Y bueno, pues nuestra intención es compartir y sobre todo, ¿no?, difundir y aprender de otros entornos educativos. Estoy segura de que esta ponencia de GUF en estas jornadas os va a aportar muchos mensajes que queremos que os llevéis a casa para implantarlos en vuestros centros de trabajo. GUF, te doy las gracias por compartir este tiempo en tu apretada agenda y que nos ayudes a entender y a compartir también esta visión contigo, y gracias por tu conocimiento y tu experiencia. So, Gulf, thank you very much for sharing with us your time. Your schedule is quite hectic, but thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience. See you soon. Muchísimas gracias. Os deseo una jornada muy productiva y que podáis aprender mucho, compartir mucho y sobre todo también pasarlo bien en estas jornadas. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Excelencia, honorables colegas, es un placer y un gran honor para mí impartirles una charla sobre la promoción de la salud escolar. A lo largo de los años, he aprendido que lo que están haciendo en Andalucía para acercar la salud y la educación es un ejemplo a seguir para otras regiones y países de Europa y del mundo. Continuare en inglés. My name is Goof Buys. I'm the manager of the UNESCO Chair on Global Health and Education. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you today, so I have recorded my talk and hope you will enjoy it. I will be speaking today about the whole school approach to health, a global perspective. And I want to address 5 objectives for this morning. Briefly want to introduce the UNESCO Chair on Global Health and Education, why health and well-being in schools matter, focusing on health assets, and particularly when we look at promoting health and well-being for children and young people, looking at the role in particular of school nurses in health promoting schools, and I'll close my presentation with an update about the Schools for Health project. So first of all, the UNESCO Chair on Global Health and Education. We are a UNESCO Chair and also a WHO collaborating center. So we work closely with both UNESCO, which is the UN Organization for Education and Culture, and the World Health Organization, which is on health. We look very much in how we can align health and education. And from a recent publication of UNESCO, it's actually about three important aspects. It's about transforming education through health and well-being, which leads to better learning, which leads to improved health of learners and their well-being. It's also cost-effective and it improves equity. The second point is there is a focus on the school environment and transformative education. So this involves effective participation by all stakeholders and focus on sustainability of the efforts for the long term. And also about funding opportunities for long-term research on effectiveness, implementation, and upscaling. A consideration, and very luckily, very recently, in the Lancet in 2024, an excellent study was published where something very obvious, but never really, with this evidence being published about the impact of education as a determinant of health. There's been a study by our dear colleagues Terje Eikemo from Norway, and it looked at, over the years, what education means for a determinant of health and the mortality risk. And in this picture on the left, you see that each year of education reduces all-cause mortality risk. And if you look at the graph, you can see if you have 18 years of education, so really from kindergarten up to the end of secondary school, 18 years or even higher education, you see a reduction in mortality of 34% with no education at all in the left side. So this is clearly strong evidence why education is important as such for health. Schools are a setting like no other. And this is also a recent publication in the Lancet. Again, this was published in 2024. Every day, 20% of the world's population is in school. 1 in 5 people in the world are in school right now. Schools are vital social settings because they cater for this large proportion of the population and because they are places of learning where children and adolescents navigate their own development. And in this picture, you can see that schools are really in the heart of the community. So what's the place? Where do people learn what they know about health and sustainability? The school system, the higher education system, the after-school programs. It's in the primary care system, community health centers, local health care professionals and pharmacies, dentists, etc., home care and help, hospitals, specialized institutions, the mass media, the cultural systems, associations, sport clubs, and of course also the faith communities. This is a picture from the UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning, the UIL. What can schools provide? And this is from a study in the Journal of Adolescent Health by Professor Ross, David Ross, and he looks at 5 different themes, you could say. It's good health and optimum nutrition. It's connectedness, positive values, and contributions to civic society, to engagement, etc. Safety and a supportive environment. It helps for learning, competence, education, and skills. And finally, on agency, learning to act, you can say, and resilience. I think these 5 categories summarize very well what schools can provide in health and education. Another aspect, also very recent data from the UNESCO support that, is when we talk about student well-being, we also need to talk about educator well-being. They go hand in hand. A school is a community that includes students, teachers, staff, families, and the broader environment, all of whom play a vital role in supporting health and learning. The well-being of students is inseparable from the well-being of the entire school community. And there is increasing evidence how these two are related. I would like now to continue with some support documents that are available developed by international organizations like the World Health Organizations. And I just wanted to highlight a few available tools that can support you in your work in supporting schools on a daily basis. First of all, I would like to point out the second edition of the AHA guide, which is the Global Accelerated Action for the Health of Adolescents. This is a guide to support country implementation on the work of school health services. There's a new version out last year, and in my presentation, I've made a link to the Spanish version of this edition. It's a very rich resource on looking at all the different elements, including health promotion, for the work of school nurses and school doctors. A second I would like to point out is that there is a whole series of fact sheets on adolescent and young adult health, also developed by the World Health Organization. And just some key facts. What are we talking about when we talk about adolescent and young adult health? Key facts are that over 1 million, 1.5 million adolescents and young people died in 2021, which is about 4,500 every day. Young adolescents aged 10 to 14 years old have the lowest risk of death among all age groups. Injuries that include road traffic and drowning, interpersonal violence, self-harm, and maternal conditions are the leading causes of death among adolescents and young adults. Half of all mental health disorders in adulthood start by age 18, but most cases are undetected and untreated. Fifth is that the early onset of substance use is associated with higher risk of developing dependence and other problems during adult life, and younger people are disproportionately affected by substance use compared with older people. Finally, globally, there were 42 births per 1,000 girls aged 15 to 19 years old in 2021. Then, this fact sheet that I just briefly summarized, here is the Spanish version in this slide, and there are also all kinds of fact sheets in case you need to find out more. One is particularly on drowning. The others are on injuries and violence. There's one on alcohol use, tobacco use, mental health of adolescents, obesity and overweight, adolescent pregnancy, and physical activity. Also, interesting to know is that the World Health Organization for Europe have developed policy briefs last year. These are more used for advocacy to support policymakers or support you in your contact with policymakers on research which has been done on different aspects. All are summarized in fact sheet. A lot of the research has been done by the Health Behavior in School-Age Children survey and also other studies. And without going too much into detail, Here are they all listed, the different fact sheets. There are no English, there are only English versions of these fact sheets on sexual and reproductive health, on refugee and migrant children, fact sheet on providing services to adolescents, an overweight and obesity fact sheet, mortality, early childhood development, digital environment, the impact of COVID-19 on education, breastfeeding, and adolescent mental health. The interesting part is that these data are more focused on Europe and are summarized in an extremely practical way. And the fact sheet on the impact of COVID-19 is also where the UNESCO chair has contributed to see the impact of school closure on adolescent and children's health, and on the work by the school teachers and by the health professionals. So really worth a recommended reading for you. Next, some talk about what is a health promoting school. Well, let me start with a description that has been developed by the Schools for Health in Europe network. You may know that I was involved in the Schools for Health in Europe network for many years. And at the moment, it is rather quiet. It's in a dormant phase or getting ready for a next period, hopefully soon. Can talk about that at the end of my talk. But a health promoting school pays attention in a structured and systematic way to the health and well-being of pupils and of school staff as part of the school plan. This captures very well that health promoting school is not about a simple project on healthy eating, but really integrated in the whole school system. And the whole school approach, this is also very familiar to you, consists of 6 elements: the healthy school plan, the physical environment of the school, the social environment and the school climate, the teaching, the health skills and action competencies, the links with communities and parents, and the health services. As you can see visualized, all linked together in a tree that is growing. Also, what's available are the global standards for health promoting schools. These were developed by the World Health Organization and UNESCO and other UN organizations and other agencies to support schools and countries in how health promoting school can be developed and looked at. And it is very much intended, these standards and indicators, to function as a system. So they all belong together, and they are in 8 different areas. From, you could say, on a more national level, the government policies and resources. The whole of government is committed to invest and making every school a health promoting school. This is also actually making every school a health promoting school, what WHO says also for the European region. You could say that could also count for you in Andalusia. So then you have the government, next to the government policies, you have the school policies, the commitment of a school to invest in whole school approach. Then the governance and leadership, a school extremely relevant and important in the decision making and the supporting of the project, the partnership of the school and the communities. And then on the lower bottom, these are the aspects that are more focused on the school system itself, the curriculum, the social environment, physical environment, and the school health services. So for each of these 8 standards, a whole list of indicators has been developed and very, very useful for developing policy and implementing policy. This is how they visualized are all together. In the heart, in the gray, black, white area is the school, the community, the school governance, school policies, and national policies. In the SHE network, the Schools for Health Europe network, many resources are available. One that I would particularly highlight is the tools to support school policy. There is a Spanish version. It's the Manual Escolar de Chi, Spanish version. And again, you can click on this slide and you get direct access. And it's a guidebook to become a health promoting school. It's the circle you see on the right that are the 5 steps to develop a whole school approach to health. Getting started, assessing where you are, your starting point, making a plan, take the action, and monitor and evaluate in a circular process. We have developed this tool about 10 years ago based on the need for schools to how can you make this change? Because when you are introducing health in a school, you're actually going to change the system, as we discussed earlier. Schools are a system, you want system change, and this tool is particularly there to support an individual school in its change to make a whole school plan on health. It's got 5 steps, just briefly going through them. Step 1 is getting started, and basically that's the preparation. In my experience, and I've worked with this tool for many years in many countries, this takes quite a long time to get everything ready. You need the support from the management, the colleagues who will be leading the work. What's the relationship with the parents? Can we create a working group? Do we have the resources, the time available? So this actually can take almost a school year to get this sorted. But then you have a good structure in order to make the next step, which is, where are we now? And this is the starting point in phase 2. Schools never have done anything. There is always something that's been done. School put attention to health and well-being already in classes. They may do projects. They have a history in all these different elements. So it's helpful to describe where are we now with the school. And there's a very interesting tool for that too. It's the rapid assessment tool, also available in Spanish, which is a set of questions, about 35, 37 questions, basically indicators related to a whole school approach to health. It helps to identify what a school already does and what the priorities are for improvement. And it can be used as a tool to discuss with parents, with the teachers, with the students on prioritizing what we should do and should not do on health and well-being. It can also be used when you already have a health promoting school to have an assessment and set priorities. The great part of this is, that's the happy part of the story, that schools can make a choice. They do not have to do everything. They cannot, and they can prioritize on one theme for the next 3 or 4 years, and then do this again. Once the theme and the priorities have been selected, you move to step 3, which is the planning for action. Describe the ideas. How can we involve the other stakeholders, colleagues, professionals, outside the school, parents, and then you write down the plan. This could look like this. What are the themes? Describe the themes. What are the objectives? Measurable objectives. How is the planning and the scheduling? And also, how do we communicate and evaluate these actions? And this will help in phase 5, the monitoring and evaluation. You measure the progress of ongoing activities. You look at the challenges and successes, celebrate your successes, look at the effectiveness of this whole school approach regarding the aim and objectives you have, and the appropriateness of health promoting schools for the school community. And then you're back in the circle. As you can see, step 5, move into step 1 again after 3 or 4 years and start the process all over again. This is ongoing quality improvement, I would say. Finally, a few words about the Schools for Health project. It is an EU-funded project led by EuroHealthNet, which is a membership organization, and I know that Andalusia is also a member of this organization, together with 12 partners from 8 different countries. It's a 3-year project that aims to introduce, strengthen, and sustain the adoption of a health promoting school approach to health. It's a very ambitious project. It's not a research project, but I would say more an upscaling and implementation project. And happily, the Junta de Andalucía, the Conferencia de Salud y Consumo, is also active in this project. And this is the picture of the kickoff meeting we had in April 2023. And the UNESCO chair is also involved in this project. So the objectives of the Schools for Health project are to enable positive changes in the school culture, which promote health and well-being of students and staff. It helps a better understanding among all stakeholders of health promoting school approaches and their importance for improving students' health and well-being, and also looking at current societal challenges. Think of the climate crisis, or the word we use now, polycrisis. There's a lot going on in the world. Identification of policy-related factors that hinder or enable the implementation of whole school approaches and actions, looking at increased capacity, opportunities, and motivation among policymakers, and collaboration among project partners to exchange experiences. Key activities are looking at practice. So actually about 16 schools in the 8 countries will be involved, and their communities, to implement practices of good examples of interventions. In your case, you have worked with the fruit and veg project. Policy, it looks at policy. How can we understand the broad policy context of health promotion in school settings, and engagement? And that's actually the phase we are in this last year of the project, an online information and campaign on the value of the health promoting school approach. A toolkit for policymakers will be developed, guidelines for health practitioners, there will be knowledge exchange, and also possibility for Schools for Health accreditation process. And actually there's an online hub on the Schools for Health website, which you can see, schoolsforhealth.eu. The good practices that were actually the start of the project in 2023 were Snack and Chill, which was implemented also in Andalusia, in Hungary, and in Slovenia. And from what I've heard, it's been very successful in Andalusia, the transfer. It's all these 4 interventions you see here, Snack and Chill and Smaaklessen, that's a Dutch program on taste lessons. On physical activity, Better Movers Thinkers from Scotland, and life skills on mental health. These projects have all been proven effective in the country where they were developed and been transferred in other countries. Very interesting aspect of this project. Trainings took place, life skill training in the Netherlands, Snack and Chill training, some of you were there, in Belgium, and Better Movers, Better Thinkers, which was carried out in Romania. So a bit of the policy context. This is some work that was done last year. An overview of outcomes. Most experts were aware, or partly aware of the concept. These are in the 8 countries, so that's Spain, Belgium, Romania, Greece, Latvia, and the other 3. While there is consensus that health promoting is important, health promoting school is important, there's a lack of or weak implementation of legislation, and mainly voluntary initiatives. So what is needed based on this policy assessment? There's a clear framework needed with more mandatory requirements, but continue to give schools freedom and flexibility. Every school is different. Every school in Andalusia is different. So you cannot have top-down, but rather a bottom-up approach. Also, it has to be made easier for schools to understand what is expected of them and how to implement health promoting school approaches. Also, the existing cooperation between ministries, in particular Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health, should be strengthened, and all institutes and other bodies should create networks around the schools. So more alignment, collaboration to support the schools with their particular needs. A central coordinating body is required, is recommended within schools, as I talked about in my talk part about the process tool for becoming a health promoting school. To conclude, I would like to say, first of all, Andalusia is a good example, a good practice of health promotion implementation. When I was introduced in the work of Pablo and dear colleagues during our first kickoff meeting of the project in April 2023, I realized that what you are doing is basically what we have been promoting for years in Europe and worldwide, and how bringing health and education sectors together, a very interesting example, leading example, I would say, for other countries to learn, and also to see how at the moment where you are, how can this be sustained and to be truly integral for education, the education system and the health system in Andalusia, all the other regions in Spain and other countries in Europe. As I have demonstrated, there's clearly a key role for the school health services and particularly school nurse. There's a great resource available. There is already supporting structure, and I think school nurses are the change agent in bringing about health promoting changes in a school. And finally, the work is very much in how we can continue bringing health and education sectors together. How can these ministries, how can these sectors who are so separate and so different in their language, different in their finances, different in their prestige, in the attention, especially these days with populism rising, it's even more necessary that these sectors work together and also demonstrate the results and the effectiveness of what we do. Thank you very much for your attention. Muchas gracias. If you have any comments or want to contact me, my email is here, and you're also invited to join the global community of the UNESCO Chair. Thank you for your attention.